Okay, getting set up with your Camarilla trades and your magnets, or your buy points or sell points. Here on in this video is assuming that you've watched all of the previous videos and you've learned about the concept of the magnet and what the H3 range top L3 means and all of that stuff. So please do make sure you get those parts first. So using just this basic indicator, you don't need anything else. Even though I use a lot of fancy stuff, it doesn't need to be used. We have one daily range here on a Sunday, just some hours, like 5 hours before the close. You're going to want to, sometimes you can turn off historical to see, you can just kind of see common occurrences that happens around all of these daily closes. And that looks like what's going to happen now. It looks like we have a new developing pivot, and how you see those is you have to show future H3, L3 pivot. And that will do the same for all four levels: weekly levels, monthly levels, yearly levels. It'll take the current price action and plot the next levels. Please be aware those levels are not confirmed until time frame closes. So like let's say I see this next pivot, so I think there'll be a small rise, although that's pretty close. I wouldn't take such a trade. But there's still 5 hours left of the trading day. If price went way lower or way higher, it would pull an average up or down these levels. And a lot of price action does happen just before the close. So it's important to remember not to jump the gun with these. And since it's Sunday, you may be used to using the daily levels, and let's take a look. That's pretty good, because here you can see several examples, 3 in a row actually, right here, middle of the week, where the day closed and we were right next to the H3. Let's put our here's H3 right here. And as we know, the first H3 or L3 is usually a fake out, especially when we have a new CPR untested. So that's how your first trade of the day, right? The daily opens up and you get an idea it's going to be around here, and that the pivot's going to be far away from price, because you're probably using this function to show the next pivot, maybe an hour or so before the daily actually closes. So you can get prepared for that trade. And you can try to get your entry on, or as close as you can to the H3, and swing down to the L3 in the pivot. And if it holds, you can buy. So there's your first trade, your magnet, H3 to L3. And then when you see it holds L3, goes back over it. That's the rule. It loses L3, but then it regains it, and it regains the main pivot. You'd enter along for H3. Got a range break. And from that point, you can either try to trade it back down, but there's no point because the trend has been up. And as you can see from the higher time frames, it's been trending upwards. See? 1, up, up. So while you might have been quick to close the short, maybe you'd want to hold the long for the higher levels. Like it almost got to H5 here, strictly because for days it's been trending above the central pivot range. And that's how you can judge which way it's trending, right? And that worked for several days. Same thing here. Daily opens up near H3, trades to L3. Here we get in our long, back to H3. Price opens up. Oh, maybe I wouldn't have taken this one. It's a little close to the pivot. Actually, let's see. Yeah, it's pretty good. A couple thousand points there, right? Let's see. That's still pretty good with these big swings, right? So you could trade down. Then when it gets back over, but then that one doesn't go anywhere. And when it doesn't go anywhere like that, but just runs sideways, we can see the next pivots coming in the inside range. You can still You could stay in that trade, or you could get out and wait to see what happens, and then, well, boom, you had a breakout play from the L3, the bouncing off the pivot. It broke upwards. You can see how price kind of narrowed, got more narrow, and broke out. All right, now we have this Sunday daily, but here's something you want to not run into. Let's open up the weekly levels here. See, even though we have a daily several hundred higher, it's important to, when weeklies and monthlies close, to be aware of these points. So, and it's a high rate of, those are high frequency hit points. Let's take a look at the weekly. Let's clear our drawings out here. New drawings. All right, so we can see here, sometimes from below, sometimes from above, right? Boom. Boom. Right? We're always hitting that weekly, one way or another. It seems very nearly unavoidable. Now, when trading to the pivot, it's important to not take this such a trade if the price is already near developing CPR or on it. That means there is no reversion to be had. This one, there's a few thousand points. How to manage it? Well, first of all, when you take these trades, with such wide ones here, and especially since it's a few hours ahead, you could say enter a little bit on the daily levels, on the current daily level. We open up the daily levels. So let's remember, this is right now 700. We have the developing H3, which is the same as the weekly H6, around 63, 64. So you want to be prepared just in case price went up here and then swung down to an averaged up pivot several thousand lower from higher. But maybe it just goes straight down, right, from here. So you could average your entry. You could put some here, and then you could start small. And then you open up the daily levels, see where the next H3 is coming in. Oh, not much higher up, so you could put some here, right? Or today's daily H3, you could wait to see if it gets there. So you could average in parts, just in case price went up in those last few hours or just after the daily close before reverting to magnet level, right? And so that often happens. So let's take a look at one. Here's one. So this weekly closed, right? It closed pretty high, 58, and it had a pivot down. Sorry, this is the daily levels. Let's go on the weekly levels again. Here we go. All right, 4-hour weekly levels. Okay, here's a lower one. Same concept. All right, so price opened up not too far, 41, 43. Not too. I took this trade. I remember not too far from the developing L3, and we saw the 48 for the main pivot coming in. So you could have entered long around here, or if you saw it coming ahead of time, try to get in around here, right? But don't go all in. Save some in case daily opens and it actually gets to that weekly or that daily L3 before it does the reversion. So you don't want to, because if the price moves, you enter just because you want to make sure you catch the trade, and then price moves and it averages the pivot away from your entry. That's no good, right? Because it can get pulled up or down before it develops. So if you enter in parts, you are pretty much just averaging yourself with the price, waiting for that retracement to happen. And then once that retracement does happen, you can decide, do you want to short the retest, or is it going to break out and you want to flip to a long position? In this case, it was a long position. All right, and that'll be the first video for explaining how to operate different level.